highlighted more than ever as our nation responded to the impeachment of America's president. In an article in The Atlantic, reporter Emma Green writes that America's great self-sorting is partly responsible for the two divergent narratives that have emerged about impeachment. Democrats can't believe Republicans are willing to give President Donald Trump a pass for basically anything, including asking a foreign leader to investigate the family of one of his political opponents. Meanwhile, Republicans, on the other hand, see the latest phase of the impeachment inquiry as a deceitful, partisan ploy from Democrats desperate to get Trump out of office. And these are not just two different ways of interpreting the same facts, with a gentleman's agreement to disagree. They're totally separate understandings of reality, based on the assumption of the other side's bad faith. I believe this is a terrifying reality to live in. When we are unable to speak peacefully and acknowledge the other kindly, we devalue our whole world by giving in to anger. I was reminded that this week, that we must somehow stop speaking at each other and find a way to once again speak with each other. Even our Torah portion, which is always perfect, whichever portion it is, always perfect for the week's news, and even our Torah portion this week teaches that an inability to speak kindly can lead to terrible lapses in judgment that only further separations and struggles. Our tradition calls out to us from this week's parashah, begging us to keep lines of peaceful communication open. In this week's Torah portion, we're told that Joseph's brothers were so filled with hate that they could not speak a peaceful word to him. Our sages reflect on the harm of the negativity they harbored toward Joseph and comment that this statement reflects their inability to calmly discuss matters of shared interest without it erupting into dispute between them. Sound familiar? What starts with hurt in our Torah becomes an inability to communicate kindly. That in turn leads to Joseph's brothers being so overcome with anger, so unable to find good in him, that they consider killing him. The ability to speak kindly to one another is thus highlighted as an incredibly important value. The text and the commentary on it speaks a lot about the importance of trying to communicate with kindness and the value of controlling our anger, which I will highlight now as I see so many arms folded and breaths being held. Jewish text has numerous teachings about the importance of being slow to anger, of not losing our temper, of maintaining a level head. We're taught the importance of offering people kaf zechut, the benefit of the doubt, and of trying to make peace. This Torah portion speaks to those who are so fired up that they're ready to write off the other completely, and it begs them to pull back and to try to find some way to communicate calmly and kindly. It acknowledges that disagreements can be painful and encourages us not to get wrapped up in our anger. I know this is easier said than done. They often say rabbis preach what they need to hear. I know we've come to a place in our nation's history that lends itself to separating and demonizing the other. But as a congregation, we need to strive to do better. The truth is, though, if you're already fired up to the point where you're ready to kill your brother, there's probably not a lot of rabbinic wisdom I can read you that will calm you down enough to look at him possibly and offer friendship. Meaning the diehard party loyalists who have truly come to believe that they are always in the right and their political opponents are always in the wrong on every issue, there might not be much we can do to help foster communication with them. But what about those who are angry, who struggle to speak peacefully, and who are not quite ready to completely write off the other side? The Torah gives us an example of such a person in Reuben. One brother speaks up and convinces the others not to kill Joseph, but instead simply to leave him for dead. This leads us to believe he knew the group's anger had gone too far, but was unable or unwilling to stop them. So instead, He devised a plan where he could come back and help Joseph later. However, while he was away, the other brothers ultimately decided to sell Joseph into slavery, and Reuben loses his chance to bring his little brother home. Some of our rabbis applaud him for saving Joseph's life. But for me, I blame him most of all for turning his back on his brother, because his hate wasn't so extreme that he was blinded. He still knew what the right thing to do was. And instead of being an upstander, standing up to his brothers and helping Joseph get home safely, he becomes a bystander who allows his brothers to bully Joseph and disregard his value. Why is this relevant to our political climate today? Well, I believe most of us are Reubens. We might have anger and we might struggle to communicate kindly with those who disagree with us. But deep down, we ultimately know that this world would be a better place if we could work together, if we could see value in each other, if we could overcome our anger and give time to listen to each other's voices. I believe in my heart that most Americans don't want to completely turn our backs on those we disagree with, but rather we long for a way to communicate peacefully and grow together. One of our biggest challenges as people is to center ourselves even when overcome with anger or pain. We can do it though. We can give more power to our values than to our feelings of anger. We can remember that our decisions, not our conditions, shape our lives. We can and must work to see the other as partner and friend, to understand that disagreements on how to move forward do not necessarily mean we disagree about foundational truths. It doesn't mean we're fundamentally different. Disagreement doesn't necessitate bitterness. It doesn't require us to hate each other. As President Thomas Jefferson said in his first inaugural address in 1801, we need to remember that every difference of opinion is not necessarily a difference of principle. Today, this is still true. Arguments do not have to be a matter of right versus wrong. We don't have to see ourselves as good and those who disagree with us as bad. We shouldn't pretend that all who disagree with us are corrupt to the core and all who stand with us stand purely for justice. We must find somewhere within Reuben's heart being able to stand in anger and not wish harm on the other. Then we need to go beyond what Reuben did and find voice. Speak up even when surrounded by those we love and agree with, even when we're in company of all those who think like we do. Reminding others not to jump to hate, not to spiral to attacks. We need to remember that disagreement is okay as long as we maintain the ability to speak to each other peacefully. This Shabbat, I encourage you all to find merit in the other side, to try and validate the feelings of someone you disagree with, to quietly listen without judgment to another person's fears and hopes, even if it leads them to vote differently than you. As Jews have done for thousands of years, let's not turn away from disagreement, but rather lean into the belief that by challenging one another, we can all become better. And therefore, let us appreciate one who disagrees with us as a true partner in bettering the world. Shabbat Shalom. Take a deep breath. I'm done now. Judy's going to come up now and give announcements.